Chapter 1. The Rebellious Youth. Louis Silvi Zamperini was born in 1917 to Italian immigrant parents in Torrance, California. From a young age, Louis was a handful. Mischievous and defiant, he was the bane of his parents' existence and the scourge of his neighborhood. If there was trouble brewing, Louis was usually at the center of it. He stole food from neighbors, snuck into places he didn't belong, and was constantly at odds with authority figures. His father, Anthony, and mother, Louise, tried everything to discipline him, but Louis's rebellious spirit seemed unbreakable. At school, Louis faced the harsh realities of being an Italian immigrant in a community that didn't always welcome outsiders. He was bullied and ostracized, which only fueled his defiance. He fought back, both physically and with acts of petty vandalism. The local police knew him by name, and it seemed inevitable that he was headed down a path toward a life of crime. His older brother, Pete, watched with growing concern. Pete was everything Louis was not: disciplined, respected, and a star athlete at Torrance High School. One day, after Louis narrowly escaped arrest yet again, Pete confronted him. "You have so much potential, Louis," he said. "Why waste it on getting into trouble?" Louis shrugged it off, but Pete wasn't one to give up easily. He saw a spark in his brother that others overlooked, and he was determined to redirect Louis's energy towards something positive. Chapter 2. The Path to Glory. Pete introduced Louis to the world of track and field. At first, Louis was skeptical. Running seemed like a pointless endeavor, but Pete was persistent, convincing him to give it a try. Louis's first attempts were less than stellar. He was out of shape, and his lungs burned after just a few laps. But there was something liberating about the act of running, the wind against his face, the rhythmic pounding of his feet on the track. It was a sensation unlike any he'd felt before. Gradually, Louis began to improve. His natural speed and endurance set him apart from his peers. He started winning races, breaking records, and earning the respect of those who once dismissed him. The local newspapers dubbed him the Torrance Tornado. Running became his passion, and it transformed his life. He left behind his days of delinquency, focusing instead on becoming the best athlete he could be. In 1936, at just 19 years old, Louis's exceptional talent earned him a spot on the U.S. Olympic team headed to Berlin, Germany. The prospect of competing on the world stage was both thrilling and daunting. The journey across the Atlantic was filled with wonder for Louis, who had never been so far from home. Arriving in Berlin, he was struck by the grandeur of the Olympic Games and the tense undercurrents of a nation under Nazi rule. Competing in the 5,000-meter race, Louis didn't win a medal, but his final lap was so fast that it caught the attention of Adolf Hitler himself. The German leader requested a meeting with the young athlete. Shaking hands with Hitler was a surreal experience, one that Louis would reflect on for years to come. The Olympics ignited a fire within him. He set his sights on the 1940 Games, determined to bring home gold. Chapter 3. War and the Fall. The outbreak of World War II shattered Louis's Olympic dreams. The 1940 Games were canceled, and like many young men of his generation, Louis felt compelled to serve his country. He enlisted in the United States Army Air Corps and trained as a bombardier. The transition from athlete to soldier was stark. The discipline and endurance he'd cultivated as a runner served him well, but the realities of war were harsh and unforgiving. Stationed in the Pacific Theater, Louis was assigned to a B-24 Liberator bomber nicknamed Superman. He and his crew flew numerous missions, facing enemy fire and the constant threat of mechanical failure. The strain of combat weighed heavily on all of them, but camaraderie kept their spirits afloat. Louis formed a close bond with his pilot, Second Lieutenant Russell Allen, Phil Phillips. On May 27, 1943, Louis's life took a dramatic turn. During a search mission for a missing aircraft, he and his crew were assigned to fly the Green Hornet, a plane known for its mechanical issues. Mid-flight, both left engines failed. The plane plummeted into the ocean, breaking apart on impact. Of the 11 men aboard, only Louis, Phil, and tail gunner Francis Mac McNamara survived. Clinging to 2 small life rafts, they found themselves adrift in the vast Pacific Ocean with minimal supplies, a few chocolate bars, and some water. Chapter 4. Adrift and Tested. The open ocean was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Days blended into nights as the 3 men faced the elements. The sun scorched their skin by day, and the cold seeped into their bones by night. They battled hunger, thirst, and the ever-present threat of sharks circling beneath them. Storms offered brief respite from the heat, but brought their own dangers, threatening to capsize their fragile rafts. Early on, desperation got the better of Mac. In a moment of panic, he consumed all their chocolate rations. Louis and Phil were furious, but anger served no purpose. They needed to work together to survive. Louis took on the role of provider. Using ingenuity, he fashioned hooks from pieces of the raft and lines from parachute cords to catch fish. When an albatross landed on the raft, he captured it, using its meat for bait. They collected rainwater when they could, rationing every precious drop. Despite their efforts, Mac's health deteriorated. Weakened by guilt and despair, he passed away on the 33rd day. Louis and Phil mourned their friend, giving him a burial at sea. Their own survival seemed increasingly unlikely, yet they refused to give up hope. They kept each other's spirits up by reminiscing about home and imagining the meals they would enjoy once rescued. On the 47th day, their ordeal at sea came to an end, but not in the way they had hoped. A Japanese patrol boat spotted them. Emaciated and weak, they were taken aboard as prisoners of war. The relief of being on solid ground was overshadowed by the uncertainty of their fate. Chapter 5. The Ordeal of Captivity. Louis and Phil were transported to the island of Kwajalein, where they were imprisoned in squalid conditions and subjected to brutal interrogations. The Japanese officers demanded military information, but the men had little to offer. The guards referred to Kwajalein ominously as Execution Island, and the threat of death loomed over them daily. After several weeks, Louis was separated from Phil and transferred to Ofuna, a secret interrogation center near Yokohama. The camp was designed to break the spirits of high-value prisoners through psychological and physical torture. Communication between prisoners was forbidden, but they found covert ways to share news and maintain morale. It was here that Louis encountered Mutsuhiro Watanabe, a sadistic corporal known to the prisoners as the Bird. Watanabe fixated on Louis, recognizing him from his Olympic fame. He subjected Louis to relentless beatings and humiliation, determined to crush his will. The abuse was relentless, yet Louis refused to be broken. He drew strength from memories of his family and his time as an athlete, holding on to the hope that he would one day be free. Transferred again to the Naoetsu POW camp, Louis endured grueling labor under the harshest conditions. Winter brought biting cold, and the prisoners were given inadequate clothing and food. The guards' cruelty intensified as Japan's situation in the war grew dire. Despite the suffering, Louis found solace in small acts of defiance, like stealing coal to keep warm or sabotaging work equipment. Chapter 6. Liberation and Redemption. In August 1945, the tides of war turned decisively. The United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, leading to Japan's surrender. The guards abandoned the camps, and Allied planes dropped food and supplies to the astonished prisoners. Louis was free at last. Returning home was both joyous and challenging. Louis reunited with his family, who had believed him dead. The community celebrated his return, but the shadows of his experiences lingered. He suffered from nightmares and flashbacks, symptoms of what is now recognized as post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Struggling to adjust, Louis turned to alcohol to numb his pain. In 1946, Louis married Cynthia Applewhite, a young woman he met during a chance encounter. Initially, their relationship provided a refuge from his demons. However, his drinking and anger began to take a toll on their marriage. Cynthia urged him to seek help, but Louis was resistant. A turning point came in 1949 when Cynthia persuaded Louis to attend a revival meeting led by the evangelist Billy Graham. Reluctant and skeptical, Louis agreed to go. During the sermon, memories of his ordeal resurfaced, including a promise he'd made while adrift at sea that if God saved him, he would serve him forever. Overwhelmed by emotion, Louis embraced faith as a path to healing. Finding solace in spirituality, Louis made a conscious decision to forgive his captors, including Watanabe. In a remarkable act of reconciliation, he traveled to Japan to meet with former guards, offering them forgiveness. Some accepted his gesture, others, like Watanabe, refused to meet. Nevertheless, Louis found peace in letting go of his hatred. Louis dedicated the rest of his life to helping others. He founded the Victory Boys Camp for troubled youth, drawing on his own experiences to guide and inspire. His story became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of forgiveness. Louis Zamperini passed away in 2014 at the age of 97. His legacy endures as a symbol of perseverance and redemption. From a wayward youth to an Olympic athlete, a war hero, and a man of deep compassion, Louis's life journey reminds us that no matter the obstacles we face, we have the capacity to overcome and find peace.